welcome back. Well, today I have Dr. Brant Zabwatsky with us, who is with Hoag, and he's here to tell us a little bit about some things that are going on at the hospital and a variety of other things that you guys need to take into consideration. Well, Doctor, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, what's going on in the ER room right now? Now, it sounds like we may be hitting a curve. Maybe we never really actually got there. What are you seeing going on right now?
Well, it's pretty quiet. The hospital, as most hospitals, I think all the hospitals in the country, was concerned about a significant wave of COVID patients. So we shut down our elective procedures, which are clearly a major portion of what the hospital does, emergency procedures also. And in fact, we've seen a drop off in people coming to the emergency room when they should for things like heart attacks, strokes, acute abdominal pain and vomiting, things that they normally come to the emergency room for, which actually could be a lot more life-threatening than the virus, which has a risk of dying once infected of less than 1%. So 85% of the people who get it recover, but that fear is keeping people from coming to the emergency room. And so all we are seeing pretty much are patients who have broken legs, trauma to their brain, to head from car accident. They're forced to come, but people otherwise are not coming when they should. And so it's pretty quiet as far as the COVID patients. We've seen the peak. It was about a week ago. We had 24 patients in the hospital. We're down to 10 now. And we had one admission to the hospital with COVID yesterday. And our floors are eerily quiet again because we have no other patients and we only have 10 patients in-house with COVID in a hospital that's got 400 beds.
Right. So tell me, what should our folks keep in mind? I mean, obviously your hospital's gone through and cleaned and everything's great. I mean, you're at the utmost sterilization. So what should they be considering?
Well, they should be considering coming to the emergency room for any emergent problem, crushing chest pain, sudden loss of speech or balance or vision or weakness, sudden loss of weakness, which could be the beginnings of a stroke. We had a gentleman come in, 65-year-old gentleman come in a couple of days ago, 4 days into a stroke, which was now irreversible, whereas we could have reversed it. And he told us he was afraid of getting infected. Every patient that comes into the emergency room is carefully screened and segregated. If there's any suspicion of infection, they're separated and treated in a different way. Our environmental teams are terrific. They're our partners in preventing infection. They make sure the floors are scrubbed multiple times a day. Surfaces are wiped clean. It is as safe a place as any that you can go to, probably more safe than your own home. So it is, there's no reason to fear getting infection in our emergency room or in our hospital for that matter, either hospital, Irvine and Newport Beach. So folks that would normally call 911 to come to the hospital should do so. And those that are very concerned should call our doctors. The beauty of what COVID has, one of the nice things that has come out of COVID is that our doctors are now seeing patients virtually, just like you and I are talking. Our Hoag Medical Group doctors are routinely visiting with patients using the telehealth platforms, and our specialists, patients who have Parkinson's disease and trouble moving from old strokes, or it's tough for them to get to a doctor's office. Those specialists can now see patients with the platform that you and I are using right now.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, obviously that's one of many things that I think good will come out of this whole situation. You know, touching on fear, because people are afraid to go out based on the fact that we have a stay-at-home directive. Now, of course, the directives are there for our safety as well as other people's safety, but what are some things that you would recommend people do to kind of stay away from the whole fear thing?
Well, so that's a very good point. We are now at the point where the fear virus, as I call it, is maybe more detrimental than the real virus, as I mentioned earlier, keeping people from coming when they should. But again, normalizing the fear with the facts about how this bug affects people is critical. So don't look at the collective numbers, the body count, total numbers of deaths, the total numbers of people infected. Realize that 2 years ago, we had 50 million people infected with a new strain of flu, and 80,000 people in the US died from that new strain of flu.
Right.
We're at 22,000 deaths collectively. Focus on the individual risk, your personal risk. If you get infected, turns out 50% of the folks who get infected don't even know they have the infection. Like I said, 80 to 85% don't need any kind of medical attention. It's a cold or maybe a somewhat bad flu-like illness, but they don't need medical attention. The 50% that do, still 99+% recover. And so on an individual basis, your risk of dying from an infection with this virus is well under 1%, about the risk of dying in an accident. Still in all, practice the important hygiene lessons we've learned.
Right.
Wash your hands anytime you're touching dirty surfaces, anytime you're out, come back and wash your hands. Soap and water kills, simple soap and water kills this relatively fragile virus.
Right.
Practice social distancing until this epidemic is over. It's definitely on the wane as we speak. I looked at the curves this morning. Everything is dramatically improving. The number of people showing up for testing is falling off of a cliff. So focus on your personal risk, maintain your personal hygiene, and if the fear virus is really deeply rooted in you, do the common things that lower anxiety. That would be mindfulness exercises. You can find them online. Anxiety relief through exercise. Anxiety relief through creative activities. Call your friends and do virtual lunches. And if you're still shut in, which people still are, do virtual lunches and virtual cocktail parties even. Just one glass of wine, two at most, to keep you from.
There's no driving involved.
Yes. In fact, it's interesting. We, as you know, Hoag runs a very prominent and beneficial addiction services, and we are full. And our mental health services, which are always in demand, are exceedingly in demand now. So we're seeing the side effects of the fear virus in our mental health and addiction services, and we're there. We are ramping up our services because this virus has significantly elevated some of the mental health issues that our population faces. We know from the national press that with sheltering at home, domestic violence has risen, which is not a good thing. And so people are irritable. They're not used to being cooped up. And so practicing the mindfulness exercises and relieving anxiety help others. If you know some folks who are shut in and are alone, maybe drop them a little sterile goodie basket on their front door. Call them and say hello. Focusing on others and helping others diminishes your own anxiety level as well. Gives you another purpose that makes you think that you're contributing, being part of the solution and not part of the problem. This will soon be behind us. I think that the politicians, as you know, are very interested in being reelected, and so they have an element of posturing they have to go through, and also they're accountable for patient safety and public safety. So they're being very, very careful. But on the medical side, we're becoming more convinced that we've seen the worst, and people that are worried about a second wave, well, there's always infection all around us, all sorts of, whether it's the norovirus on cruise ships or the simple flu or colds. That's why practicing self-hygiene strictly and social distancing But I look forward to the days we can see smiles behind those masks, and we can start hugging each other again, because what's happening now has gotten past the point of productive restriction, in my personal opinion.
Right.
I think that people can start thinking about going out with masks if they're coughing or sneezing.
Right.
Obviously, you should stay home if you're coughing or sneezing. But if you're out and about, keeping a distance of 3 to 6 feet is recommended until this is past us, and it will be past us soon.
Yeah. So let's look at some of the takeaways. So obviously hygiene is very important, but that's been important anyway, right? But I think what this has done is helped us think more about washing our hands, as you've mentioned. Can you talk a little bit more about the teleconferencing? What is actually happening? Can they call their doctor and it would be conducted that way?
Yes. So the breakthrough, we've all been, before COVID, looking at ways of improving access to healthcare, preventive health, and even routine health visits. The barrier has been the lack of a mechanism to bill insurance companies and collect for those telehealth visits the way that traditionally has been done for in-person visits.
Okay, that's great.
And what this crisis has done is greatly accelerated the payment process for telehealth visits. So you still register, there's still a bill generated for the visit. The insurance companies now, and certainly Medicare led the way, as it always does, are now have developed the tools to reimburse physicians for their time when they visit with you. Now, certainly at times, it's still very important to have an in-person visit, a physical exam. You can't get a virtual vaccination, as an example.
Right.
But so there's still important times to come visit your doctor, and your doctor's offices are also very quiet because people have sheltered at home. So they have time for the telehealth visits. They may even have more time for the telehealth visits than in-person visits, but they certainly have time for in-person visits. And they too have learned all of the hygiene issues that are so critical around the new virus that's spreading. And so their offices are also very secure should you need to come in for an in-person visit. I'm going to my dentist today because I've had a temporary for 8 weeks that should have been out 6 weeks ago. And I'm totally convinced that I'm safe at my dentist's office. Things like that, we need to start making sure that we don't get a tooth abscess and get septic from some bacterium from our tooth abscess because we're afraid that we might catch and or die from the COVID virus. So we need to start getting back to a level of security with the tools we have at hand and use common sense.
Exactly. And I would agree with you on all of that. And one last thing, let's just remind everybody that do not wait to the last minute to go to the emergency room for a very important thing if you're having chest pains or any other type of ailment.
Yes, in fact, I was very happy to see the Orange County Health Agency put out an announcement by its lead physician picking up on this theme just yesterday. You can look it up and they make that very same point. And so the officials will start talking about this. They haven't. They've been too preoccupied with the body counts, et cetera.
Yes.
But this is an important point. Do not neglect your health for unnecessary fear of a virus that's not as potent as you might think by listening to the collective numbers. Think about your individual level of risk, what your risk is of a health condition that needs attention versus your individual risk of getting this virus, which is still pretty small, and dying from this virus, which is almost negligible.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate all of the information that you've provided. Thank you again, and stay healthy out there. And good luck at the dentist.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And we'll be right back after this.